Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Futurum Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurumcareers.com and subscribe today. Futurum Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Hello and welcome to my show, my Tuesday night show. But after our very successful takeover of Education Tonight a couple of weeks ago, I've invited Lucy back. We're testing the waters of this potentially being a permanent thing, as we normally admin each other's shows. We're normally in the background of each other's shows anyway, so we figured we might as well do them all together, and you get 2 for 1 every week. So what could possibly go wrong?
Well, I don't think the world is ready for this. Maybe they are.
I don't know whether I'm ready for this.
I think I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be great. And after ringing endorsements from the likes of Paul Hazard and Brent Poland earlier today on Twitter, which was I think we got a lot of love. So I think we'll be fine. But before we launch into this evening's proceedings, how are you doing, Hannah?
I'm good. I'm in denial that school is approaching, and I've just been kind of filling my socks today. I went to the Sea Life Centre and then went to the circus. So I've had a lovely day. I've had the chaos that has been family. I've had one family member after another for the last 4 weeks. So this was kind of a little bit more quieter, but it's been nice. How about yours?
Well, I mean, we've sort of met. I feel like we're sort of part of your family because we've kind of them sort of from a distance because they've been parts of shows and things in the past, and I'm sure they will be again. I'm sure we can get them back because they were good fun. As for me, on this side of the world, I say that like I'm miles away. I'm only in Portugal. We had an earthquake the other day. It was my first one here at 5 a.m, or about 5:10. Sound asleep was I in my bed, and suddenly the earth shifted. And before I realised what was actually going on, it had stopped. And it was one of those weird moments where everything went silent. And then for a few seconds, and then my phone went bananas because it woke everybody up. Did you feel that? What was that? It was honestly quite surreal. And my poor friend Anna, who lives down the road from me, had to be up really early for the start of a whole series of inset days and orientation at her school. So she was not particularly thrilled with the natural world deciding to flex its muscles, as it were. But there were no tsunami warnings or anything like that, so I think we're fine. But we should probably move on to introduce tonight's proceedings.
Before we get onto that, should we do our lovely sponsors?
Yes, let's. So we are currently and luckily still still being sponsored by John Catt Educational. Now, at the start of the academic year, you might want to treat yourself to some CPD, to some new reading material, and you can, because we still have a 20% discount code for you, which is being pointed out by Hannah, and you can see on screen there, which is JCTTR2425, and that gets you 20% off the whole range of the entire website. So do go and have a look and do treat yourself. It's the start of the new year. You absolutely should. So that is there for you should you want to make use of it, and I really think you should. Okay, so Hannah, what are we up to this evening?
So I thought I normally do one at the kind of this time of year. I do normally this time of year and then just before January, because I feel like these are the two hardest times to go back. Once we've had Christmas and it's all dark and horrible and you don't want to go back, and at the end of having a lovely 6 weeks off and lots of sunshine, it's just hard to go back. So I feel a well-being session is needed to kind of prepare ourselves, prep ourselves, maybe give some hints and tips to newer teachers that are coming back and that might be a bit nervous, imparting wisdom for some more elderly teachers that have lots of skills under their belt that are like, yes, this is how to manage it, this is what you do.
Veteran teachers.
Veteran, that was the word I was looking for, and pass it down. So if anybody does have any tips or wants to ask questions, then do comment, because we can put them up throughout the show and answer them for you or read them out. So
I have a question for you, Hannah. At what point do you think you can call yourself a veteran teacher? At what point do you kind of get to go, do you know what? Is it a decade? Is it 50?
I think once you've got a decade under your belt, I'd call myself a veteran.
And how long have you been?
My issue is that I don't look like a veteran. So I changed schools, and somebody asked me whether I'd ever had a tutor group before, and I was like, yeah, I'm 13 years in. I may have had one or two.
So you've been longer than me, because I'm approaching 10 years, I think. So because I didn't quite come to teaching straight away, I sort of farted about for a bit, pretending I wanted a glamorous life in London, and got fired from every single job I had.
See, I disappeared to the other side of the world and pretended I didn't want to be an adult, and then eventually joined teaching.
Yeah. So anyway, we digress. So we are talking about teacher well-being this evening, and a lot of these things I think we are aware of, but I think they bear kind of reiterating. And as veteran teachers, we're sort of, these are things that I suppose we've learned that we sometimes need reminding of ourselves, because as much as we've been at this for a long time, as you know, I'm not actually going back at the moment, but I still feel that these things are important, and these are things that I thought about, and I'm sort of very good at the beginning, and then they slip a bit, but hopefully we can inspire you to keep them going. Right. Okay. First up, let's go. Now, I put this first because starting a new academic year, wherever you are in your career, is always a bit daunting, particularly after the summer, when you've had a block of time off, as you mentioned, Hannah. It's kind of, can I still do this? And that imposter syndrome sometimes lingers a bit, and it sort of, you start to kind of, you don't really sort of check in with yourself. You suddenly sort of realize that you're a week out from starting, and all your energy kind of goes into that. People sort of stop checking in with themselves. I don't know if you ever feel that.
I do. And I'm now at the point where I'm a bit like, at the start, I was like, oh, I'll get ahead and I'll do some work over the holidays. And I'm now at the point where I'm like, shit, I didn't do anything. And I've just actually really enjoyed myself. And I'm a bit like, oh, maybe I should do some now. But I'm also now I'm at the point where I don't want to give up my last few days of my holiday, especially considering there's a heat wave as of tomorrow, apparently. So I'm like, no. Every time I've planned it, there's been a heat wave. So I am not planning any work because the sun gods have just told me that I'm just not meant to. But I do feel a little bit underprepared compared to usual. But then also I know that deep down, I know I am prepared. I know I've got this. I know exactly what I'm teaching all year. I don't need to worry. It's that thing, isn't it? I feel like as teachers, we can always work. You could work 24 hours a day, every day, and it would never be enough. There's always something else we can do. There's always something else we can tweak and improve. And I think that's a veteran thing, is going, actually, I've done enough. I don't need to do more than what I've got. and kind of being okay with that.
It is the privilege of kind of having been in the game for a while, I think. But that's not to, I mean, and any ECTs that are listening into this, or indeed listening back to this, that doesn't mean that you need to have spent, I mean, it's a bit late to kind of tell you this now, but you need to have spent the entire summer doing this, that, and the other. But it also doesn't mean in these first sort of few weeks that you need to be driving yourself mad either. And we'll sort of touch on this more as we kind of go through. But I think it's very easy to sort of to overdo it. Like each academic year is, I mean, describing it as a gauntlet is probably not the right thing, but we know it's hard. We talk about this all the time on Teachers Talk Radio. We know, we know what we're in for to some degree. So it's very important that we pace ourselves, which will come up in a moment. So do have that check-in with yourself. Don't just launch yourself kind of back into it. Do sit with those feelings. And I feel like my woo-woo side is very much going to come out in this episode this evening, because I'm sort of learning it's got to the point where I'm taking time off. So I'm kind of learning. I'm almost sort of these are also things that I wish I'd done more of. So in that respect, I hope that you can kind of take heed from what we're telling you. Okay.
Before we go into the next bit, I want to throw an unpopular opinion out there and see whether any other teachers agree. So my unpopular opinion is that we should actually have one inset on the last day of term before the summer holidays, because I feel like at that point, I will know what the school's agenda is for next year. And I've got the whole summer to think about it, not to dwell and do loads of work, but I know how I'm going to bring those things to the table, as opposed to it being the first day back and then literally like having a day and then you've got to implement it, having only learned about that thing like the day before. So my unpopular opinion is I think we should split the inset and you have one at the end of the year. So, and you have that day to kind of take everything, have some like lectures and like learn about what the school priorities are for the next year, sort your classroom out on that last day, and then you don't have to stress about it over the summer holidays. You kind of done it and you know what's coming, as opposed to I feel like that kind of inset kind of nervous anxiety of I don't know what the school's priorities are going to be for next year, and I'm going to find out next week, and how much am I then going to have to adjust and plan and adapt. It's I don't know, what do you reckon?
I think you might be onto something. I've been intrigued to know. I actually don't know if that would be as unpopular as maybe you feel. I don't know, because there's so much that happens at the start of an academic year, and I do feel like those inset days, because we usually out here get quite a few, which I often feel are actually misused, and kind of there are some things that are sort of shoehorned in there that don't really need to be in there, or that, as you say, could have been talked about in early July in my case, but July generally, so that then people can kind of go into the holidays and be like, okay, I really can disconnect now for a bit, because I know kind of what's happening. I can kind of refresh myself sort of end of August, early September, but other than that, I'm clear, I'm good. I think it would actually alleviate a lot of anxiety, but let us know what you think. I don't think that's be nearly as unpopular, but then again, Hannah, I could be really wrong. I don't know. Okay, let's see what is. Oh, whoops.
We both clicked at the same time.
That was it. Ease yourself in. This kind of sort of tags on to the last point, really. It's very easy to go back in, guns blazing, being like, I need to do this. It all has to be done right now. Everything's happening. Ugh. It's okay to slow down. It took me a hell of a long time to learn this. And you can't, and there are things in those inset days or in those first few days that you won't get done. And that is okay. And this will kind of be a theme in some of the other points that I've included on this. But it is okay to ease back in. It is okay to take things steady, because the overwhelm that will kick in if you don't will then kind of carry through that kind of, there is still going to be that nervous energy. Of course there is. But learning to kind of pace yourself and ease yourself into it is a skill. It is something that takes a while to master, But I think this art of kind of not getting panicky, and it's very easy to say and it's very difficult to do.
I completely agree. I think for me, it's working out what things I need to do at the start and what can wait. Because I do feel like actually I get most of my stuff done kind of the second week, especially like because I feel like the first couple of days as well, the way schools generally kind of secondary schools change the lay of the day as well as they kind of some schools will put different year groups on different days, which means that and if you're a tutor, you might have extra sessions when you would have had PPA or assemblies when you would have had lessons. So actually, I find like the first week is kind of a little bit of a write-off, but actually just have something really easy, a really short lesson that you can kind of pad out with lots of chat and kind of good discussions, rather than it being something that you have to really be on it to get everything in. Have an easy lesson and then go in your hard lesson on the second lesson. Like that's my kind of thing. So I kind of don't have a really difficult task that's going to be really hard to teach them and get in within that time. I know it's going to take me a lesson or two to get into my teacher mode and be at my good kind of pace lessons, that actually waiting to the second week is probably kind of better for them as well.
For sure. And for those primary teachers out there as well, you've got an entirely new class, and you might have done a transition day or what have you, but you've actually spent, I mean, you may have done, but usually it's unlikely, with kids. And so, you know, it's an opportunity to get to know them. It's an opportunity to, and of course, there is so much in the curriculum, whatever curriculum you are doing or whatever, you know, whichever stage you are at, whichever level you are teaching, you know, there's a huge amount to cover, but it's a time to get to know each other, to set those boundaries and those things. And the boundaries are something we'll come to in a moment, but it's you don't get this time back either. And I just think that start of the year, particularly in primary, is a lovely time and is a sacred time. And I suppose, you know, not being in the classroom for the start of the year this year, that's the kind of thing I miss. It's that sort of getting to know each other. It's kind of deciding sort of what your classroom rules are, what the expectations are, coming up with that together, deciding what you're going to put on the walls. And again, classroom walls is something we'll come to in a moment, or classrooms in general. But yeah, just take it easy, people.
My other thing from a secondary point of view is that I try and like nail the kids early on. So I will look at the data and make sure only for those first couple of days, I've got a bit of, because for me, I have inset Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I have lessons Thursday, Friday, but some of those are tutor times and stuff. So I know I haven't actually got that many. I've probably got like 5 or 6 seating plans to do for those 2 days. And then the others I can kind of catch up in my PPA the week after. But for me, it's nailing those kids and making sure my seating plan is spot on. Because earlier in my teaching career, when I didn't kind of prioritize that because there wasn't enough time in inset and I was trying to plan my lessons and sort of that out and was just like, I'll just work it out on site and get them to stand around the room and sit in the right places, I paid for that. So knowing your kids and getting them in the right places, look who's got what needs, read that information that's from the transition, read the lovely code names that the primary school teachers have said that are trying to make them not sound as bad as they are, and really kind of read between the lines and make sure you sit in the right kids in the right place from day dot, because it's much easier to manage their behaviour like that than to try and correct it afterwards.
And actually, I'm going to make a plea on the back of that, and then I promise we will move on. Teachers, in your transition documents, tell the truth. Tell the truth. Save the kind of slight sugarcoating for parents' evenings and for reports, okay? That's where you sugarcoat. Between colleagues, be honest, okay? Because we're going to find out anyway. We're going to find out who the little so-and-sos are. Very,
Sods,
very.
I think is the word.
Yes. I was trying to keep Davina rules. Oh, we've got a comment before we move on. Let's have a look at that.
Well, I clicked on it the same. We're just both on it tonight, aren't we?
Yeah. So tip for ECTs especially, make your first class. Tell your students how you fell in love with your subject. If everyone else is giving out rules, you'll be the standout teacher of the day. Great way to start. I think that's lovely advice.
That is. For me as well, I I'm going to try and remember the name for it. But I am massively, especially my GCSE classes, I am like, this is in my subject, every kid in my class gets at least a grade higher than any other subject. Like my progress rate in my subject has been insane throughout my career. And I tell them that, and I tell them that I don't expect anything less, and that is my expectation, that they work hard. I work as hard as they work. So if they work hard, I work hard, and I will help them achieve it. But their target grade is not what I expect them. Their target grade for me is a grade higher. So it's like it, and it sets the tone. They kind of know what they want it to be and kind of what they kind of are expecting, and it kind of gets, I think it kind of sets the tone. There is a word for it which I'm frantically trying to find and I can't, it'll be sod's law. But I just think, yeah, I think having those high expectations from early on is really important, especially with the older groups, that this is what I expect from you, and I don't want you to like, don't let me down or disappoint me.
Yeah, don't take the mick, because it will backfire. Right, should we shuffle on?
Yes.
Are you still trying to find your word?
Yeah, I am. I thought I'd got it then and I haven't. I got very excited.
Okay. I feel like this next one kind of contradicts a little bit what we've just said, but it does and it doesn't. When I say let's get organized, this is something that is not said to freak anybody out, and it's not said to kind of, go, gosh, you got to do everything. No, but it does bring, as someone who is not naturally well organized, it does bring a sense of peace to know that there is some degree of just of readiness. And this goes for, I'm kind of talking on a personal level at the moment. So things like just kind of, again, being up to date on the data, things like just making sure that things work, like your board and your computer and stuff like that. Things like just, what else? Having your stuff ready, and we'll talk about that in a moment, because I know that a lot of you kind of, buy yourself kind of new bits and pieces, which we'll get to. But as teachers, we know we have to be organized. We know we have to have our act together. And also, if we're presenting that as kind of how we are, then children tend to follow suit. If you're kind of presenting as, and I'm naturally quite chaotic and I do have to work quite hard, but if kids see that you are all over the show, they kind of take that as license for them to be all over the show. So you kind of have to practice what you preach with this a little bit.
No, I completely agree. And that goes back to kind of my seating plans early doors. I think that getting that is my kind of top organizational tip, is to have those and have them printed out as well. My school does the little pictures. I know year sevens won't have had those pictures yet, but for me, for example, I didn't teach year 8 last year. I teach the whole of year 9. I'm now going to have a whole load of kids that I have never taught before, that I'm going to have to now learn all their names. So for me, having their pictures out, making sure they're sat in the right seat, it makes me easier to kind of name them when I'm talking about behaviours as well, and me make little notes early on about behaviour habits of the students, like at the start, and then I'll kind of know if there are any little tweaks, make myself my little notes. And also the other thing as well, like making yourself, you put commendations or house points or whatever your school uses, and putting those positive points on at the start, because actually as well as a parent, like getting those positive points right at the early start of the year, it can have a really positive thing. But if you're not organized enough, that you haven't kind of worked out which kids where they're sitting, or haven't logged or kept track of who's done good things, then you're kind of starting on the back foot. And actually if they're like, oh, that teacher, if I behave, they're going to give me like positives, that can set the tone as well. So just having that organization of, for me, I just print out those seating plans, and I can just make little notes of who's got positives for those first week or two, and then it's a lot easier, isn't it, after you kind of get the hang of it. But little things like that in terms of having them organized on my desk. For me, I'm a big planner, although me and my friend did this, like we were showing each other planners in the staff room, and I literally will write 2 words in each box, and I know what all my lessons are. I just have to write a reminder of what I'm doing, especially with the fact that year starts like on a Thursday. So for me, there's 2 Thursday and Friday classes are going to be a week ahead of the other classes. So kind of tracking what Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are doing versus the Thursday, Friday classes can get kind of struggle later on down the road when they're unorganized, especially if we add in a bank holiday and then Monday and Thursday and Friday are out of sync of Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. So having that log, I write in all my dates and all of my lessons down the sides for like the whole half term. I don't necessarily write in what I'm doing for all the lessons, but if I've got the lessons written down and the dates, then it also makes it easier to add stuff in, add meetings in, just that basic. But that's like the only time consuming thing that I will try and get done before it starts. But then like it just sets, then you're not kind of going panicking and be like, oh, what am I doing this week? When I do the lesson, I can write a note. That class had an assembly for half the lesson, so there didn't get to complete it all. And those little things that will keep you on track.
For sure. And on that note, you reminded me of something. And I know a lot of schools are trying to go paperless and things like that, but I do think things like having your duty rota on the wall for break and lunch duties. Because I mean, I've had to do a fair few at my school that I was that I've just left, and you know, highlighting. And again, these sounds like really kind of things, but it's things I've forgotten about in the past. And then you know, you kind of trying to go and find these documents and trying to kind of memorize it. Nah, forget it. Having your timetable printed and on the wall somewhere visible, a class list. You know, these things are. It's kind of Lucy, this is so obvious. I'm like, it is. But also at the same time, it's things that can kind of get lost in the sort of, I've got so much other stuff to do. I've got to make sure everything's planned within an inch of its life. I would almost kind of worry less about that and worry more about your kind of life admin, things like that, that just, then it's there, a year calendar, you know, if your school's kind of smart enough to kind of get one together. Knowing what the staff meetings are or the CPDs that are coming up, as you say, Hannah, having those to go and things like that, because it just, you know, it just kind of has it ready to go. But things like, and again, as a primary teacher, you know, things like guided reading groups and things like that, I wouldn't necessarily worry about things like that unless you know kind of, you'll have a good idea of what their levels are because hopefully you'll have done a solid transition with their previous teacher. But all these things have wiggle room. So there's organization and there's organization. There's kind of, you might have, you know, your groups set or you might group them for maths or whatever it is. But if you haven't nailed it or you discover a couple of weeks in, it's fine. And I promise you, again, ECTs, this is more directed at you, your world's not going to crumble. You can move and jig and poke around and kind of, it's fine. Everything is fine.
My big thing is I have an A5 planner, so I print everything half the size and I will stick it in the first few pages of my planner. So I have all of like the calendar and my timetable and everything in there, and then it's kind of organized. But my other thing that somebody did years ago, and they all do it at my new school, I can't remember who makes them, but they're genius. So basically there's one person who did it for the whole of their department and then basically cottoned on. But if you put your timetable in like a little Excel, you can work it out that you can print it so it's really tiny, or you can snip it, tool it, and then print it like 4 per page or 6 per page, depending on how big your lanyard is. So this is my big tip. We print them out, laminate them, and then stick them on the back of our lanyards.
Oh, you're getting to. Oh no, you're giving me.
And then literally, when I'm like, what am I teaching? I just look at my lanyard. I'm like, oh, that's where I'm going. Oh, that's where my break. Like literally everything is on the back of my lanyard. I don't even have to remember what lesson I've got, and I'm just carrying it around. And it's like when I'm on duty or my school, we go and collect the kids and walk them back to lessons. So if I've got to remember what zone I've got to go to because I've got to remember what year group I'm picking up, and I'm like, right, where am I going? Then I've got it on my back of my lanyard, and I don't have to remember. I've just got it there. Basically, anything that reduces my mental load where I don't have to remember it is always good.
And it's, I suppose, for secondary teachers who don't necessarily always have a set classroom for things, that's quite useful. Whereas I suppose it's slightly different for us primary lot who do have. So the equivalent of your planner is the massive notice board I had next to my desk, and it had everything on there, as well as a load of kids' artwork, origami, cards. I mean, it looked like a chaos wall, but I'm very attached to my chaos wall because kind of there was sort of the organized half and then there was the kind of the chaos half, which is always quite lovely. So yes, you can as JBL said there, you can don't agonize, organize. It's one of my stick it notes to myself. Being disorganized makes everything so much harder. It does, but I do think you can I think you've got to be realistic. And we are perfectionists in this profession, but again, it goes back to saying take the pressure off yourself, do the things that are going to help you, and the rest will follow. I think that's fair enough.
Completely agree.
Okay. It's like a magical mystery tour through my brain, this, and I can't remember what I've put next. So let's find out. Yay! So Hannah, I put this one in honor of you, actually.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm even sharing my lovely, shiny, excited things. I'm on everything. I don't have a pencil case. I'm not organised enough to have a pencil case to put them in. They will be loose in the front pocket of my bag. I'm not that organised. But I do love a nice shiny new pen. Specifically, I don't know whether it counts as sponsored content. I love a Bic. My granddad, when I was little, used to wrap them up, and I used to get one in my stocking. He was an engineer, and he worked on the engine for the jet aeroplanes. He designed the metal strip on money and used to do the holograms on banknotes. He was very, very intelligent. But he thought the Bic pen was the best invention in the world, and he'd buy me one every Christmas. So I start every year with going and finding the coolest Bic pen I can, because then I've got all my different colours as well. So I just feel like I do feel like I get bored if I write in one colour pen. I just like to excite my life with some different colours. That's it.
Also grand when you're in a really boring staff meeting as well. Yes, I mean, I'm sort of, I only really got into stationery, I think, when I started teaching. I mean, I kind of wasn't really bothered when I was at school, excuse me. But yes, buy yourself the pretty pens. It's a nice thing. You are going back to school. All the kids are getting themselves new pens and pencils. Why on earth shouldn't you have nice things? But my caveat, again, for primary teachers, unless you don't mind kids kind of using your stuff, keep your stuff separate. Because I had some lovely felt pens and things like that just ended up getting wrecked, and I just kind of got fed up with replacing them. So I either hide them or don't get them if you've got one of those classes. One of the best bits of stationery actually I ever bought was window pens, and I don't know, some schools feel differently about this, and I allowed my kids to scribble all over because I had a big window in the back of my classroom. Obviously nothing inappropriate, but
wouldn't work for secondary.
No, I am fortunate in that actually this year's class were pretty good, although I think I was really naughty and I left it. I don't think I scrubbed it off before the end of this year, so the caretaker at school probably hates me, so I'm probably going to have to go and apologize to him at some point for leaving that on. I forgot about it, to be fair, because my blind was down at the end of the year. But yeah, buy yourself your pretty pens, your highlighters, because it just makes things a bit more fun. I actually always bought my own board pens as well, because the green, the blue, and the black that we were kind of given just didn't thrill me. So I had the rainbow ones, and usually ended up having kids drawing all over my whiteboard as well. It gives you an insight.
And I think as a secondary school teacher, if you have your own pens because you're moving around rooms, it makes life so much easier, because I'm the type of person that I'll leave a pen in a room and then I'm like, oh no, I don't have one for this room, or I move to another room and they haven't left one. So I do think, especially if you're in multiple rooms in a secondary school, then do have your own. But I think the thing that you put in here that's really key is that you deserve them. This does not mean go out and buy loads of resources for your department because your school is underfunded. No, don't spend your own money. Spend your money on things that are going to make you happy. Don't spend money on your department because you don't have the budget, or the budget hasn't been released yet. It's
that's not a you problem. That's a them problem. Yeah, this is for you. So that notebook, that academic diary, the new back, and this kind of goes beyond stationery as well. You want the lunchbox. Don't buy those ridiculous, I probably can't name them, but everyone will know the ridiculous overpriced
cups. Yeah.
About. I had a mini a jab at year 7 because we have had our secondary on site. And I was forever kind of going on at the like, why? And also, when one of those things is full, it's like carrying around a small baby, or like quite a large baby. So yes, don't buy yourself a nice water bottle, but don't spend silly money on it because you don't need to, and you'll probably use it anyway. That's just me I'm talking about. But yes, just, if you need a few new bits and pieces, don't feel guilty about that. I think that's quite a nice thing to to treat yourself to, and to kind of raise a smile. And who, as you say, and who doesn't love a pretty pen or a nice highlighter? But yes, you might want a pencil case. Although I'm just as bad as you. I have pen slots in the front of my bag, so I'm a huge hypocrite there too.
I think as well, I don't know whether this is an unpopular opinion or not, but my thing is that I have 2 notebooks. So I have one for all my CPD, but then I do a lot outside of school. But previously I've kept it anyway, and I've got one that I put all my CPD needs that are things that are going to actually help my teaching, that I want to remember, that I want to look back on. And then I've got another one, which is I don't have to-do lists, I have a to-do book. So I write my to-do lists in there and then cross it out, and then whatever I don't finish at the next week, I then take it over onto the next page and then start that week the next week. Yeah. So, but I feel like if I write my CPD and my to-do list in my book, I then don't look back at the CPD. I don't kind of use it as much. I'm not as precious about the notes, but I feel like splitting them is a thing. And I definitely think a to-do book, because otherwise if you write it on a post-it, you're just going to lose it or forget it, and it kind of tracks it.
This is now my old one. Also, spot which one of us is a primary teacher. None of these stickers are mine. This was my old one, which was dutifully decorated by my class no longer my year 4s, now going into year 5. But yeah, so I'm with you on that. And just kind of, you can organize it in the way that you see fit. But yeah.
I don't know. I've got lots of tips for kind of well-being on to-do lists. Should we leave that until later, or do you want them now?
Did I put to-do lists on here? I can't remember. So I don't know if it's on here. So while we're on the kind of pens and books thing, yes, I think let's talk about, because I am appalling when it comes to to-do lists. I like to think I can store it all in my brain, and I can't. So Hannah, I think you're about to change my life. Go ahead.
So I've got into this new thing. I bought a new planner, and it's to do with kind of prioritizing your tasks. So actually I would kind of now going to turn my page sideways and put it in 3 columns. So anything that can be done in under 10 minutes goes in the first column. Anything that's kind of half an hour-y task, maybe an hour, go in the middle column. Anything that's going to take more than that goes in the third column, which is then your project column. So I know the time on the tasks. And then also then you can kind of either highlight or like exclamation marks. So 1 exclamation mark means it's kind of relatively important. 2, it's very important. No, then I don't really need to do it. So I can kind of look at it, see what time I've got available, and see which task would fit in that time slot that I need to get done with the time. So I found, because I'm very much, I will do the easy tasks first because they're easy and I like ticking things off, and I didn't really need to do that thing, but that's the thing that I really like doing, and that's the pretty thing, that's the fun thing, that's the task that makes me happy. So I do that task first rather than nitty-gritty hard tasks that I really should do, but I'm putting off because I don't want to do the hard work. But actually I know my life would be better if I did the hard task first. So my kind of teaching New Year's resolution for the year is to try and do the hard tasks first rather than the easy tasks that don't really need to be done. So kind of looking at it and prioritizing. Some people, I've done it in, I think the other year, where I color coded them. So I did all of like the ones I had to do first, like green, and then I did the next color, and then did the next color. So I kind of prioritized them. So I'd write my to-do list and then kind of highlight them in the colors of what order I needed to do them. But I definitely think that kind of thing of kind of thinking in terms of how long something's going to take and how much of a priority it is can then help you time block. I was telling you about like a book that I read, 4,000 weeks, which is apparently the number of weeks we're alive on general average. But it's all about kind of blocking time. Like if I give myself 2 hours to do a task, it will take me 2 hours. If I give myself an hour to do a task, it will take me an hour. So I need to get better at not kind of going down the rabbit hole and spending hours on something that really could have been kind of half an hour. and kind of really prioritizing that time, because I think as teachers our time is so precious, and we can give it all, we can like kind of constantly give, and then you've got nothing left for the things that you really need to do, or the things that you want to do, that like your happy tasks, the like joy tasks that bring us joy but we never get around to doing, that those little kind of, I almost call them hobby tasks. There's loads of things that I've always wanted to do that I know would be really, really good, but I just don't have the time to do it, and it just falls further and further down the priority list until it's forgotten to transfer over one day. But yeah, I definitely think as teachers we need to be kind to ourselves, but also kind of don't give more time to something than it deserves, because that, especially as an NQT, that is, or an ECT now, it's very easy to kind of go down that rabbit hole. I remember having one, who did I try, like probably a good 10 years ago now, and he used to spend every weekend with his girlfriend. They were both teachers, and they spent every weekend as ECTs doing work for their teaching. I was like, no, that's not how you live your life. We could all give up every weekend, because people ask, how do us vets do it, Lucy? How do we not work weekends and not work after when we go home? We just don't. The world will go on. Our lessons will still be okay. I've had lessons that I've planned hours for, and they've been shocking, and I've had lessons that I planned 10 minutes for, and they've been incredible. And like, you just don't know how the lesson's going to go, so you just got to go into it with an open mind and do what you can do, but don't give it your life, because it's just not worth it.
I mean, I'm always reticent to say that it's just a job, because teaching is so much more than that. But there are occasions where you do have to go, it is just a job.
But it's a job where you can buy stationery.
It's a job you can buy, and that's actively encouraged, and we actively endorse this. I think we both do, but it is very easy for this job to take over your life, and we talk about it. We've talked about it many times. It'll come up again and again, and work-life balance and all the rest of it. But you gotta kind of learn to stop. And learning to stop is really hard. And I think it's somewhere in this, there's something about boundaries. But so we'll put a pin in that, and we'll come to it. But yes, it is a choice, though. It is a choice, and you do need to put yourself first. Not all the time, but sometimes. Anyway, right. I know I put this together, but it's kind of like a magical mystery, because as soon as I put it together, I forgot what order I put this in. So what's coming up next? Your guess is as good as mine. Ooh. The imperfect classroom.
It's like you saw into my classroom.
Oh, mine too. I put this in because, I mean, I know in secondary, a lot of the time you don't have your own classrooms. I don't know, Hannah, do you have an art room or not?
I do share it a lot, though, but essentially it's mine.
But this also kind of goes out to primary teachers as well, because of course part of your time is to do with setting up your classroom at the start of the year, and backing boards, and in fact displays in general, I'm quite open about the fact that I am crap at. I don't have the artistic eye. I find backing boards to be atrocious. And in fact, my shout out to Afonso, my teaching assistant, who was kind of my teaching assistant partway through this year. He's actually a law student, but was brilliant. He ended up doing it for me because I couldn't bear it. And I think it quickly dawned on him early that wonky was kind of how I operate just in general. But, going into the year, your classroom does not have to be perfect. And primary teachers, those walls need to be full of stuff. Please, I beseech you, do not over-decorate, because it's overstimulating for you. And if it's overstimulating for you, it is going to be overstimulating for those kids. Also, a lot of the stuff on your walls, and this goes for actually secondary as well, shouldn't even be your nonsense. It should be kids' work. And guess what? They haven't done any yet. So, your classroom there, it is okay to start the year with blank walls. I promise you it is okay. And all these tiles and everything, beautifully. I'm sure I'm hurting Hannah. Hannah's saying you don't have to do all these beautiful titles on the walls as an art teacher. She's going to kill me. But it's okay to print them out, primary teacher, laminate them and plonk them. It's okay. It is okay. It is okay that, you double bordering, you can, I have for a number, and if I could, Hessian actually, because it's, so if your school's willing to pay for that, get in, because I that, but instead, I tend for one color, each, usually one for each wall, and then kind of a block color border. Of course, it is, and I have done this in the past about perfect classroom, and there are those teachers that will do that, and I am not shaming you. You want to do that, work on, and you have my full support. However, if you are Team Lucy and you are and you've been told by multiple head teachers to work on your displays because they're not great, it's fine. You're not, teaching isn't about your displays, okay? They'll live. What's in kids' trays and all of that jazz is probably more important, although they lose it all anyway. So, there is that. But yes, it does not have to be perfect at the start. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Well, ironically, I'm at a school that doesn't believe in displays. So every wall is blank, and it's really bizarre. I'm kind of the exception to the rule as the art teacher. I am allowed stuff on the walls, but the rest of the rooms are all blank. And I do find it a bit weird, but I have read the science and I do understand it, that it's distracting. So I agree that there shouldn't be anything at the front of the classroom. That should be relatively plain, because that they are going to distract. But I do think it's important that we champion kids and do have their work up and do show that we're proud of them. I mean, I'm a big advocate. I'm taking pictures and putting them on the school electronic boards. I'm like just annoying people. Can you put these up? Can you put these up? Can you put these up? And doing it kind of that way. But like, I do think it's important, and it's just. Yeah, that has been my big ick over the summer, is seeing like reels on Instagram of people going in and doing their boards and their walls and stuff. And I'm like, no. This is the holiday. This cannot be a thing that there's like, and then I'm like, oh, well, actually you're kind of clearly making money from doing this and getting people to watch. But for the teachers that are watching, that are just going, shit, I don't want to have to go in and do something and have to produce something like that. It's insane. But also, they're getting likes and views that are probably funding all the stuff they're buying, and they've probably got like friends doing it for them and what have you. Like, they're probably not really doing it there alone. It's all a false mirage is what I hope it is. But yes. I just think it should be, like you said, it should build up through the year and show what the students are achieving, and it should grow as the year goes.
And this is a bitchy thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. You might have the perfect classroom. It doesn't make you a perfect teacher.
Yeah, because my thing is that I'm quite a messy teacher, but then again, there is a huge link in the research that messy is linked to creativity.
Tidy's away, yes.
And like I am a little bit messy in the fact, but I'm so organized. I could tell you what I'm teaching any lesson throughout the term. So you could literally go, what are you going to teach year 8, week 2 of the spring term? And I could tell you. Like, I know exactly what I'm teaching for the whole entire year for every single year group. I am that organized, but my room looks a mess. Like, I print off the whole entire year's worth of resources and put them in piles everywhere. And then I know just collect them all up. And then at the end of the year, I sort them all out. And then I know I don't have to print that. I've got extra. I'll keep those and use them the next year. I don't need to print extra off. I've already got a certain amount that were left over, or what have you. Like, but it doesn't make me a bad teacher having a messy room. My results no person in my school got close to my results at my old school. No other subject. So I may have had the messiest room, but the kids were learning the most out of the whole school. So like, there is this thing of like, I'm not going to spend my Friday after school tidying my room and clearing it up. Granted, I know I should do, and they're like, I'm really working on getting the kids to have onus into clearing up. I found, especially in COVID, kids do not know how to wash up, let alone wash up some paintbrushes. They will kind of half wash them up and then stack them, so then they all end up messy and stick together, or hide stuff. And it's just like the glue sticks, if they can't find a lid, they will just hide it somewhere, so then it's dried up, and it just drives me potty. But like there's bits that I'm ordered in and I count things in and count things out and stuff like that, and I know exactly what's coming in, and the kids will know that if they're not, if everything's handed in, they're literally searching each other. They're like, Miss
Oh
is
yeah.
not going to go for lunch unless we find that Posca pen. Somebody find it now. But that does, like, but my classroom, that doesn't make the rest of it, like, but it doesn't have to be this perfect thing. Like you said, a perfect classroom does not mean it's a perfect teacher.
No. And the thing is, if you like doing it, and there is no shame here. And if you've got a husband, a partner, a friend who can kind of knock you up something beautiful for your book corner, there is great. I'm happy for you. I don't have that. So and I have bust many a gut, and I have cried, and I have, trying to do this. And it's wasted energy in terms of, if it's not your thing, don't try and make it your thing. And Hannah, maybe this is something we can kind of work into whatever we end up calling this time we have together, this show that we do together. But the idea that being imperfect is great as a teacher, and it's and this is, again, no shame to because there are very type A teachers out there, and that works for them, and that's fine, and they do a phenomenal job, and in some ways I do wish I was more like them, but I can do it too without and I suppose almost, and this is maybe a show in itself, where we can kind of talk about the fact that just because we are that little bit more chaotic or that little bit more out there, we're just as good. We just do it slightly differently, and that's fine. You don't need to unclench a bit. Come join us. Trust me.
And the thing is, well, being honest with the kids, I will say to the kids, like, I've had parents evening, I've had reports, I've had hospital appointments, I've had a sick child, I've had a master's deadline, I've had all these things after school and happening during school, and meetings and this and that, and that's why my room's a little bit messy today or this week. Like, just bear with me. And like, I've had kids turn around and go, oh my god, like that's an insane amount of stuff. Yeah, I can completely understand why your room's like this. Like, it's and same, that goes for SLT as well. Don't go in and hammer a teacher because their room's messy. You do not know what's going on in their home life. You do not know what's going on. You do not know who else they're having to care for, look after, whether that be children, sick family members, their own mental health, like dealing with other stuff. Like, we all have stuff going on, and kindness is everything. So don't go in and go, you have not tidied your room, you need to make it good. Granted, I appreciate maybe the night before open evening, like, my room will be spotless for opening evening. I'm not a complete cow. Like, I appreciate the mission. The mission is it has to be tidy for that day, and that is the day that it will be the tidiest it will ever be. But be kind and ask if you can help them. Ask if they need any help. Is there anything you can get them or help to sort it? Is there anything they need in their room to help them with their filing? If they had a few more resources that they could get out of another budget, would that help? Like, just be nice and be kind, because, like, the odds are that they're just struggling and juggling a lot of stuff, and we all, and that's actually kind of what the best teachers do. I think they juggle a lot, and actually I prioritize the kids. If there's something I can do that will benefit the kids, then that is what I'm doing. I'm not going to be I'm not going to be like, oh well, I can't go help that kid because I need to tidy my room. I'm not going to go and find that kid that's having a really bad time at the moment and check on them because I'm tidying my room. I'm not going to go call that parent and check and see how that kid's getting on because I need to tidy my room. I'm going to prioritize the things that are going to make a difference in a kid's life. My room being a little bit disorganized is not that.
Also, if you've got a cupboard of doom, particularly a walk-in cupboard, throw it in there, shut the door, deal with it later. And I have definitely ever done such a thing, to the point where on the cleanup day that my school had recently, I had to deal with my cupboard of doom, and it will haunt me for the rest of my life. So cupboard of doom is a temporary fix. Don't rely on cupboard of doom. But yes, if you do need to make things disappear because you've got parents coming in for parents' evening, just make sure you can still shut the door.
I'm still digital, so I'm okay with that. I just need that. I have got a message. It's not come up on here, but I've got a message off Brent. It says a veteran, and then in brackets, the Latin versus for old, is a person who has significant experience and is usually adept and esteemed and expertise in an occupational field. So there we go. His tip for well-being is hide your glue sticks, label your stapler, and give nobody your printer code. And I completely agree with this. I bought, no joke, at my old school, I bought like a stapler that was no joke, like the biggest stapler I've ever seen and the biggest hole punch I'd ever seen. It was like I could barely lift it because I got so fed up with everybody stealing them. I got the Posca pens out. I wrote art department over them. Even the kids were like, well, like you've gone mad, miss. Like, why have you bought such a big one? I was like, because everyone keeps taking them and nobody can steal these. Or if they do, I can see them. I can see the teachers taking my hole punch from a mile away with the size of it. And then I got my pulmonary embolism and I was off loads and I came back and they'd gone. I sent the kids on little missions to go try and find them because I was like, nobody else in the school has got as big. And they found one and brought it back. But I still lost one. I'm like, but if you really are precious about your hole punch and stapler like me, then bigger is better.
And wall
stealing them. No, I like full on just staplers because I'd staple the kids' books and all sorts all the time and things. And glue sticks is my living help. But my top tip is keep the lids. So when they run out, take the lid off and put them in the basket. So I say to the kids, if you can't find the lid, just put one of the spares on. And that has saved so many sticks just getting thrown in the bin because they can't find the lid because somebody's kicked it around the other side of the room.
Same with whiteboard pens. Kids' whiteboard pens. This is a tip. Save the lids. That's what I used to do. I had a pot of them on my desk.
I've seen it, but I've not done it. I might do it this year. The whole thing of labelling your glue sticks with people names. Apparently they return them.
Yes.
Like, where's I need Mildred. Who's found Wilfred?
Is that the word when you give it something human-like qualities? Do I mean that?
I don't know. That's a beyond.
Someone tell me whether that's right or not. Also, I've got to put this one up from JBL because this makes me feel better about life. A tidy desk is a sign of a sick mind. I had that on a desk plaque a student made for me. That is something I am going to take to my grave. I also have this, which I don't know if you can see what this. Put it in front of the camera. You probably can't see it very clearly. This says, "This is not a hill I'm prepared to die on," which is actually a quote I stole from a comedian, but it's kind of something I instilled in kids, which is really, you're really gonna, this is the one, this is the thing that you are going to go against or kind of argue with me about. Are you really sure that this is what you're gonna be remembered for? And it's quite a good disarmer, that one. Doesn't always work.
I went on a course by Suzanne Cole, and she told us that there's 3 types of teacher. There are filers, which is something that I would esteem to be and not. Pilers, I'm very much a piler. Yep. I pile everything. Or the last one, you're a tosser and you throw everything away.
I'm very intrigued to know what the definition of that is.
When you just chuck everything away and you don't really care. So I'm mainly a piler. I esteem to be a filer, but occasionally I just give up and I'm a bit of a tosser.
I'm a piler, and then I am forced into being a tosser.
Eventually the piling gets too much. If I haven't been through that pile for a while, I can get the recycling. On that note, shall we have a quick look at our sponsor?
Oh, chaos.
We'll be back after this short video.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. John Catt have an exceptional collection of book titles that cover a range of educational topics, ideas and research. The books are aimed at forward-thinking schools and support best practice teaching for both primary and secondary education. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
We're back. I was just checking that Tom Rogers hadn't fired us in the meantime.
I feel like I'm clearly in holiday mode because I've sworn a little bit more than usual. So I need to get that gone before I go back because I cannot do that.
I will tell you about
when I go
Davina.
to school.
So I used to say to people, we have Davina rules on Teachers Talk Radio, which if you are old enough, because Hannah, I think you're a bit younger than me.
No, I think I'm older than you, Lucy.
How old are you?
I'm 38.
Oh, I'm 35.
See, I told you. People always think I'm like. That's why I get asked if I've ever had a tutor group at 38. I'm like, yes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. But do you remember kind of early noughties Big Brother with Davina?
Yeah.
You're live on Channel 4, please do not swear.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of said to people Davina rules, and then I don't follow Davina rules. Anywho, boundaries.
Yes.
This is important whether you are starting out or whether you are in veteran territory or anywhere in the middle, to be honest. And it's worth reassessing or assessing at the start of the year where those are for you. And it's different for different people. And I, in my career, have sometimes learned this the hard way, and it's very easy for us to sit here and tell you, learn to say no, because theory is one thing, practice is another. But I do think it's important to sort of know kind of, okay, I am going to leave work at 4:30 2 days a week, or on Fridays, I leave when they leave. Whatever it is, those are kind of very simplistic ones, even within school as well. What are you going to take on? Are you looking to kind of, I don't know, get promoted this year, go for head of department, or are you going to kind of, no, I'm going to stick with class teaching this year. That's kind of what I want to do. It's having that. And again, it goes back to the beginning of kind of how you're feeling. Have a think about it. And when you decide what those boundaries are, really do your damnedest to stick to them. And it is hard. And I've fallen down with this many, many times, but it does bear reminding people of. Hannah, I'm sure you've got lots of thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting you said about the kind of responsibilities, because I've always been one of those, like, really aspirational, really aiming high, like I want to do all those things, but I realized that doing those things for free doesn't like give me much, really. I can still do all those things and contain my boundaries as they are. And I will remember when I was national subject lead, our executive national director of teaching and learning for our trust, who was an amazing woman. She was like nominated for Teacher of the World awards. She was incredible. She was so inspirational, but also very scary. But she said to me, like, you're getting paid peanuts. Work out how much you're getting paid per week, and then work out, and that's how much time you should be spending on that role. And I realized I was getting paid probably the equivalent of like an hour's work per week for that role, and I was spending far more on it. Granted, I really enjoyed it and I loved it, and I wanted to go higher in that, so I didn't mind. But also that kind of just putting that in the back of my mind has changed my perspective. Like, how much hours do I put into this, and be like, right, actually, that's what I've been given. I've been given that allotted extra PPA to do that role. That is the time I'm going to make sure I do that. And again, it's like a bit of that time blocking, making sure I just set aside that, because otherwise you can end up doing everything. And it's also being as well, if you are in leadership, wherever you are, even middle, high, that you consider the people either side of you. What are the considerations of, if you introduce something else, how does it affect their work? Kind of things. If there is a pressure point in the year and you need them to hit kind of deadlines and you need to put pressure on people, do it in a way that's supportive, like offer help, ask if they're okay, do they need help, and ask well in advance. Make sure you're giving them plenty of notice. Don't just like remind them at the last minute and be like, oh, I checked you haven't done them and they're due tomorrow. Like, be like a proper middle leader and kind of be supportive of those. Also, like, do like, I'm like very much, I'm a people pleaser, I'm a gift giver, so I kill them with kindness. I will leave everyone daffodils at like Easter. I will kind of put like some kind of candy canes out at Christmas. Like, I just think that pick-me-ups are really important for your team, as well as having like asking. So as well as considering your boundaries of saying no to people asking stuff, you've also got the responsibility, if you're the one asking, to consider how you're asking somebody to kind of bend their boundaries and make sure you're doing it in a way that is manageable and sustainable. Because it is that thing, like I've screamed blue at like SLT previously, where I've got a parents' evening and a report deadline with on the day. So I've literally got parents' evening and the reports are due the next day. Granted, I should be organised enough that I've done that before and I've done all my marking, I've done that, but I haven't quite got it done. And I feel like putting the 2 pinch points on the same week is adding to a lot of people, because you have to essentially mark the kids' work that you're then going to do for the parents' evening, and then you've got the reports of 2 different year groups. Which, if you were English, for example, is fine because you see them loads in a week and you've only probably got 2 groups to write. But a little old art teacher who teaches all 6 classes, that's 12 sets of reports to write versus the English teacher that's got 4. Like, it is considering everybody in your school and everybody's workload. And it's okay to say no. And if you're struggling, say, I'm not going to be able to get this done because quite often the deadline's a Friday and you could get it done over the weekend if you need to. But you need to be open and honest, have that conversation with line managers if you have to. But like, say no, because quite often I get asked to do extra stuff and I'm like, yeah, no problem. I can do that. That's no problem at all. And actually, it's probably one thing too many. And it is, I always say as well, like, if you are asked to do something extra, just say, can I just check my schedule and get back to you? Take a moment. Don't say yes straight away. Have a think about it. I always then consult my to-do book and see how long my list is. And if it's under a certain amount, then I will say yes. If it's over, then I'm like, I've got too much on. And then you can actually, I'm very much, I feel like I always have to justify myself. Like, if I can give a genuine...
Even as veterans.
I can't do it because I've got this and this to do, as opposed to going, oh, no, I can't do that because I'm in a bad mood and don't want to. But you don't have to justify it. That's just my people-pleasing thing that I feel like I have to. But that's how I justify it to myself, that it's okay to say no.
Also, veterans, this is important for you, or kind of those of you who are kind of anywhere sort of maybe 3, 4, 5 years onwards. Advocate for your ECTs. If you're not direct or whatever, in with them, because there seems to be a culture where sometimes, and it doesn't, I rarely hear about this now, which is good, and I kind of something that's being stamped out, but sort of a lot of ECTs who kind of who have mentors or people around them to feel, oh well, I went through crap, therefore you have to go through it too. Nah, I'm sorry. If I can protect someone from something that I experience, I'm going to do that. And I think we need to be more like that. And I think, often a lot gets dumped on them, or they kind of, get to take on extra that they maybe shouldn't be doing. Being an ECT is hard enough. And I'm not suggesting that, they need to say no to everything, or you need to they need to be protected from everything. Do keep an eye on them, even if you're not kind of directly involved with them, because why should they, if they don't have to suffer something that I did, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen, because, it's Karen, or they need to go through a threat. Absolute rubbish. No, they don't. You can kind of, protect them from however minor it is, then do it, please, because, I'd like to think that someone would have done that for me. We've also have a comment, Hannah, from Patrick Ottler, who said, also remember to seek opinion and perception of all staff. One person's well-being dream could be another person's well-being nightmare. Yes, I'm sure. What's the most cringe icebreaker you've ever? Complete side note. What's the most cringe icebreaker or thing you've ever had to do on an inset day?
Oh, I don't know. I had like a bingo thing to do. I've had a bingo session on it wasn't a bingo thing. I've had a recap thing with missing words from the last inset that we had to fill in the keywords of what we taught about on the last inset.
Oh God. My worst thing this was actually in a staff meeting, and it shall remain nameless and anonymous as to where I had to do this. But it was everyone had to stick a blank bucket on their back, and the staff had to go around and write nice things about each other. I went to the toilet during that activity and refused to participate because I thought it was cringe. just a follow up from Patrick as well. We should all look after ourselves first before then helping others. So together we can make the biggest difference for our pupils and students. Yeah, I think that's
I'm
fair
quite
enough.
bad at that. I quite often will help other people before helping myself. It's the aeroplane analogy, isn't it? You should put your face mask on first before you help other people. If I see other people struggling, I can't help but offer to help, even though I might be struggling myself. But I also feel like I'm really good in a crisis. I'm better at. I can cope with it. I let me take some pressure off that person. But actually, like I don't have to do that. So it is kind of making sure it's okay for you. If you see somebody staying behind and working late, that's kind of their choice. As long as they're getting the basics done, anything they do beyond that is their choice. Like if you choose to leave at the time when the kids go, that's perfectly acceptable. I mean, I work late on a Monday, and I generally do an after school club with the kids on a Tuesday and stay a little bit later, but so I get it over and done with, and then the rest of the week I leave on time. And that's my choice, and that's how I manage it. But I just think it's one of those that we kind of need to make sure that we don't feel guilty for that. I quite often, I had one day where I had a free period last period, and my son's school was next door, finishes slightly earlier than mine, so I would leave and go pick him up because I changed school and I didn't have childcare, and I was like, I felt so guilty leaving. And then another teacher was like, yeah, I have a free period. I go home. Like what? That's just normal. And I didn't realize that was normal. And I think sometimes talking about the things that we're worried about, that we might be anxious about, isn't worth being anxious about if you talk to other people.
I just this one up from Paul Foss. Hi ladies, listening from Rose. Oh, you jammy so tonight. And I don't really want to go back to school, but when I do, I'll be adopting a cutoff time each day, probably 6 p.m. max. Cool, you're a better person than me. Australian law to be adopted contact outside. We have this law in Portugal. You're not technically meant to contact anybody outside of working hours. Should send exists for a reason, people. I'm going to say no more on the matter. Hannah, thought?
Delay send, like schedule send, make sure you learn how that tool works and use it. Or even having like a notice sheet. We have like a briefing sheet, but also like that goes out, but people can add in their notices that could be emails. So therefore you get one notice a week rather than hundreds of emails from lots of people. Like really thinking about how you're managing your staff's workload from a leader's point of view is really interesting. And think to yourself, does this need to be an email, or could I just go and speak to that person? Does it need to be sent now, or could this wait? Does it need to go to everybody, or is there some kind of way I could just send it to a specific number of people? Everybody. And also when receiving a whole school email, just think to yourself, do I need to click the reply to all or not? Is this a reply to one person?
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, this again, and we've got to be mindful here as well, that people do have different working hours, and some people do prefer to get, life out, whatever it is, done in the evenings. That is absolutely your prerogative, but still use scheduled send, please. And thank you. But I also don't think people should have emails on their phones, and I took mine off a long time ago. Again, that's personal choice, and that's a whole, we could go down the rabbit hole. I'm going to spare everybody that and move on, because I feel like boundaries we could go on and on. But yes, protect yourself wherever you are in the school, whether it's leadership.
I will add from one more thing before we get, like, just because you talked about messages and phones, from a wellbeing point of view, if you have an iPhone, there's and you go into the health section, the health app, you can set your bedtime, your sleep time in there, so you can set what time you go to sleep. So I set mine for like 10 o'clock, and it will tell me at 9:15 that I need to start getting ready for bed. It will vibrate and send a little like notification. And basically it then turns off all my notifications. So any messages or emails or what have you comes out through after that time, the little notification icons don't come through. So therefore I'm not on my phone. I don't check it. I can go to bed, have a nice peaceful night, and not have to worry and things like that. So if you are struggling and staying up late because you're getting all these emails and all the things like that, then maybe just try something like that where you can just stop the distractions, stop the noise, and have an opportunity to shut yourself off and actually get ready. And because sleep is the most important. If you're not getting decent sleep, as teachers, we need really good sleep. So if you're not getting good sleep, which I think does that lead us on to our next one, Lucy? Am I a genius, or is it not?
What's
sleep is coming. We'll come to sleep.
Sleep is coming. I mean, I feel we can do roughly fast. Goes into the reason this in is, if you want to, there are, of course, schools' budgets are tight. This is sort of a bit wishful. I mean, of course, you have your own targets, and hopefully, school has appraisal structure in place where this is an ongoing conversation and an ongoing thing. Another probably entire show on its own. And if there is CPD that you think would be useful for you, or indeed on a wider level, I mean, worst case scenario, your school says no, or says they don't have the budget for it. But I do think it is important to ask. You don't ask, you don't get.
Exactly. And it is important. I've done a show. I had Danielle on my show a little while ago. We talked about how actually doing CPD enhances we're better teachers for it. We just are. I'm doing my master's, she's doing her master's, and it really informs our thing. Yes, it's extra workload. Yes, it's lots to organise, but my God, it just makes me a better teacher. So go and find, and CPD is, I think it's CPD that's on a whole school level that's not really onto something that you're interested in, and then there's CPD that's something that really tickles your fancy, and you're like, I love this. This gets me excited about teaching. Go and find it. Find a network that has it. Like we've got our lovely history network. We've got our history day coming up. I think it's in person on Saturday. So if you're a history teacher, go and have a look on the Teacher Talk Radio Twitter or LinkedIn and find the free CPD that's available. So you can do that. But find a community where you can go and talk about your subject and be really passionate about the parts of teaching that you love.
Also, I mean, I was about to say worst case, that's not ringing. What I was about to say is Teachers Talk Radio also is great free CPD a lot of the time, because our network of hosts are often talking about things, mostly actually talking about things that are close to them or that are very topical. So there is always us. You always have us for that. And I mean, yes, schools should be prioritizing it. Yes, it's kind of one of these things that's an ongoing thing. Yes, it should be individualized. Yes, a lot of the time you do have to take matters into your own hands, but also, as we've talked about, our sponsor John Catt does have that 20% discount for you. So, again, make use of things like that. Find things like that. Often there are free things kicking around as well. It does sometimes involve doing a little bit of research, but also ECTs out there, don't be afraid to find something. Go and ask. If they say no, they say no. But it's a ballsy thing to do. Ask. So it's kind of, it does show that you're sort of willing to kind of take things into your own hands, that you are willing to progress, and that you do have your sights set on certain things. So be afraid to ask. They might say not this time. They might say, so-and-so is already going on that and is then going to do a staff meeting. That approach does irritate me to no end, but that's another rant for another time. But yes, certainly going into the new academic year, do have a think about it. And even if you do end up having to kind of do it off your own back, it's, as Hannah said, it's, I mean, all the things that I've done in recent times, I've done or funded myself. But it does, when you find things you're interested in, it really does make you a better teacher.
So to flip this, is this a shout out? We're going to shame you, leaders, educators, line managers. If you've got somebody in your department, ask what CPD they want to do, ask what their CPD goals are for the year, and make sure they follow through, hold them accountable. I feel like we should all be doing that, even if it is reading a book. Have you got a staff library? Are you surveying your staff and asking whether there's any books that they could be ordering from John Catt and getting their discount code and ordering it and sharing it across the school? As leaders, I think it's something that we need to encourage. It's really important, and just make sure your staff are doing stuff. And I think, I just think it's important. I mean, my school is lovely. They actually, I remember when I started and I said, oh, I'm a moderator. So is that okay if I do that? Because I take about 3 days off year and go into other schools to moderate and things. And they're like, yeah, we encourage people to go into other schools. And I said, another school had contacted me and asking me to consult. And they were like, yes, like you don't, I was like, I can take it without pay. That's fine. They're like, no. We encourage people to go into other schools. You going and working with them is only going to bring back and encourage stuff in our classroom. We want every teacher to go to another school once a year. And actually, at the end of the year, they were true to their word. They emailed the whole staff, if anybody hasn't been out and visited another school, please let us know and let us know when you'd like to do it. Like, that is great leadership. And I think it's important that we don't make people feel guilty for leaving the classroom to do additional training. No matter what point you are at in your career, it's important that we do that.
Fabulous. Right, let's see what we got next. So the next are kind of ones that come up quite regularly. I think this is where it comes up. I had to put food in because it's one of my great loves in life. But also, this is something that, again, seems really obvious, but people forget about. And it's things you cannot function, dear teachers, if you do not have proper nutrition. And I know there's some people who do kind of intermittent fasting and all that jazz. Congratulations. I don't know how you do it, but I am a 3 meals a day plus snacks coming out. And there are ways and means, things like breakfast. I became a big protein shake person because
I am. Because I can just have it in my car on my way to work. I don't have to, and I'm getting something good, but it gives me back 5-10 minutes in the morning. That's 5 extra 10 minutes I can have in bed without having to get out. I can grab my protein shake out the door, drink it in the car in a safe manner, like whilst driving nicely. But it's like I'm having something healthy and it fills me up and I'm good. I'm not going to school hungry. Protein shakes, especially if you're a trainee, get that routine down, because
there are so many like different types of. I mean, if you're funny about it, there are flavorless ones, there are vegan ones. Just do your research. You can kind of blend other things in with it. I sometimes put a dollop of peanut butter. I think actually not in my school ones because I'm not nuts at school. Wasn't. But you can even put a shot of coffee in it. You can put half a frozen banana.
Wait, wondered where you were going with that, Lucy, when you said you can even put a shot in it.
Yeah, shot of coffee. Just
coffee,
to be clear.
Yeah. Roger, coffee. Tom, she said coffee. It's fine.
I said coffee, Tom. That's great. The lunches, I mean, I was fortunate in that I got school lunch at school. Some of you I know are not fan of school lunch, but packed lunches, again, I got lunch at school. I am that person with a snack box that had, some dried fruit, some what else? Baby Bell cheeses. Sorry, probably sponsor content, but little round cheesy things in the, what I'm talking about. Are cheese strings still a thing? Yeah, those were great back in the day. You can even make yourself kind of adult sort of, I'm going to get killed here, but adult Lunchables, like crackers and some bits and bobs with that. It's great. Protein yogurt pots, all kinds of stuff.
I like protein yogurt pouches because then I can take them out and have them on duty.
Yes, those are great as well. You don't need a spoon. I always forget the spoon. And then, of course, in the evening, I'm kind of speeding through this. I keep meaning to get into batch cooking, and I have failed miserably every time.
So batch cooking is my big thing. So my mum's allotment is overgrown, so I nick everything. I've got like courgettes that are like basically marrows, they're so big, and I will chop and slice and dice and nick everything from the allotment, put them into different bags in the freezer. So I've got all my veg and it's already chopped. I take it out, pour it into the slow cooker, add in my tomato sauce and whatever seasonings I want, depending on whether I want a curry or something else. Add in my meat from the freezer as well, whack that on. It's done when I get home. But all the prep is done like in the holidays. That's what I'll be doing this weekend. That's what I do at half term. So each kind of bit, I do a little bit to make my life easier once I'm in school. So definitely, I'm a big batch cooker. My other two tips are like you said, school lunches, I don't genuinely have them, but I have like a tenner on my account. So if I'm having a really rubbish day, a really rubbish morning, and I, for some reason, messed up my food shop, didn't have enough food, didn't have time to go do the food shop, or didn't have time to cook something, or something went terribly wrong, I know I can go and have a nice warm meal at school without having the stress of I haven't got anything to eat tomorrow. I can just do that. But I have it there kind of in case of emergency. And the other one I've discovered at my school, when I had a little breakdown, a little cry in the staff room, one of the teachers came to me and went, "Come with me." And I went, "Okay." And they took me into their cupboard and opened their bathroom door. And they have a secret chocolate drawer for cheering people up. And I'm like, "You're my new favorite person." They're like, "Yep, this is the breakdown chocolate drawer. So if anybody has a breakdown, you come and you get a chocolate bar and everything's all right." And I'm like, that is the staff community I need. So highly recommend if you're what are we going for? Veteran. Have yourself a chocolate drawer and don't be afraid to go find that teacher that's having a rubbish day and make their day a little bit less rubbish, because food can do
It goes a long way. It really does.
Yeah.
There's us kind of trying to be all the yes, of course, we endorse the sort of the healthy side of it, but you need joy in this life. I'm sorry, you do. You need joy. You need kind of Easter eggs at Easter and candy canes at Christmas and all the fun stuff too. But yes, fuel yourselves, please, for the love of whatever you choose to believe in. Fuel yourself. This kind of goes hand in hand. I am a team slow runner, and this has been fall by the wayside. Certain things get out of whack at school. But Hannah, I know you're a big fitness person as well. Make it work for you. It does not have to be. I mean, there again, this is where Instagram, things like that, these Instagram that are getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning. If that's you, and it's going to be me, you're not going to the gym 4 o'clock in the morning before work, that's fine. Okay. It's a walk at lunchtime, or if it's, if your form of exercise is walking the dog after work, something. If it's, yoga, whether it's running, whether it's Zumba, find something, because it makes you feel better.
I think it's exactly that, isn't it? Movement is never going to harm. It's only going to make things a little bit less worse and make things a little bit better. So whether it be a walk, I used to exercise in the evenings because that's what I felt I only had time for. And then I swapped to mornings and I just do half an hour in the mornings before I get up. And I just feel like I've done something of my day. I've peaked early. I'm done by 7 o'clock. I've reached my peak of the day, and nothing can be as bad as that was. It will clear your mind. You'll be more awake when you get to work and things like that. So I do find, but also I do quite like the evening ones. If I had a stressful day, then I will sit there and I'll stress. And before, when I didn't exercise, I would then go to sleep and stew on it. And actually, if you've had a rubbish day, go for a walk or exercise, and it will de-stress you. The toxins will work, and you won't feel as stressed about that thing anymore. And maybe it's not as bad as you had it, kind of thing. Like, yeah, it is important.
And I know it's hard, particularly for those of you who have families and things like that, to fit all these things in. But they're always like, I have friends who, take their kids with them. They turn it into a sort of a family affair. They're all over YouTube and things like that. Like in lockdown, we were all doing, Joe Wicks's workouts, weren't we? Whether you had kids or not, I was doing them regardless. Minus the silly outfits, though. Which I did always enjoy what I was wearing, though, because I think that was Scooby-Doo at one point. It was mad time. But yes, the I know people kind of bang on, it's kind of the endorphins and the this and that and the kind of the benefit. It's kind of, I know it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. I know what. Honestly, carve out that half hour. Whatever it is, even if it's kind of one of those little something you found on YouTube, because it is, again, it is the boundaries thing as well. It is the kind of it is the you time. It's really important. So yeah, ringing endorsement for the exercise one. I think, Hannah, finally, yes,
sleep. Sleep. Make sure you sleep. Sleep is really important. If we don't sleep, our body doesn't recharge. It doesn't regenerate. We're going to be far less functioning. Like I've been reading a lot in sleep, and it's just so important to us. And especially as a trainee, don't force yourself to stay up. Don't then go and do loads of work at home and then be like, well, now I've done loads of work, so I haven't actually relaxed. And now I need to watch an hour of telly and then I'll go to sleep. Just make sure you've got a good bedtime routine. Like I said earlier about the app and turning off notifications, going to sleep. Try and get that 7 to 8 hours is kind of the peak of having a good functioning body. And I think us teachers will all admit that we're probably not getting that. So do try and make that happen, because you will see the benefits if you do get good sleep.
And also, I mean, I get chastised, or did when I was still in schools, because I wouldn't really socialize during the week. It would be going home, going for a run, cooking dinner, maybe binging some kind of nonsense on Netflix, and then going to bed, because Monday to Friday, I'm sorry, that's how, you need to find. And actually, increasingly, I do think, and certainly I think the Gen Z lot kind of coming up are big advocates of this. So shout out to Gen Z, because they're actually making us. Sorry, I'm just having to plug myself in, because I've just got the low battery sign.
We are almost at the end, but I'm just before we go, I'm gonna pop in a few of our messages. I know Patrick's in a windy field in Wales and has gone back to the fire pit, but he put some really good points earlier that we kind of missed. He talked about how we should encourage all to own their own well-being. Flexible working, especially those coming back from parental leave, may adopt unusual working patterns to fit their new lifestyle. Do not feel like you can't prioritize your family. They are the number one. School will cope without you. The amount of times I remember even like being pregnant and like not feeling my baby kick, and but it was like I think it was open evening, and I was freaking out, and my friend was just like, she went and bought me a can of fizzy drink and an ice cream to try and wake the baby up. He was fine, but like I completely freaked out, and she was like, no, you're in no state, go home. And I think that's also a responsibility as well, because we feel like we're letting everybody down, so we do more. But actually, it's really important that we look after ourselves and our family.
Be a martyr.
Our family's well-being is just as important. And he said as well, like for some who need to leave school early for childcare, etc., may want to access in the evening, ownership, flexibility should be encouraged, and able to good personal choice. Yeah, so I also am very much like, sometimes I do work like after my son's in bed. I'll do it at like 8, 9 o'clock at night, but that's my own personal choice. But then don't judge me if I leave early, because everything will get done. I think it's find what works for you, but just make sure you're still having those balances and your well-being with it. And also JLB, he reads a book about teaching every term, and he's learned something valuable from each of them. I think that's so important. I think that should be everybody's teaching resolution, should be to read a good book on CPD. And if you're not sure about what book, go and have a look through our archives, because we've got loads of shows interviewing the authors, telling them you about the books, and then you can like kind of be like, oh, actually that's more up my street, I'm going to go for that. So and don't forget as well, we've got our lovely code as well, so JCTTR2425 for 20% off, and you can go to johncatbookshop.com for those books.
But also there are if you don't want to spend the money on books, the library thing is also great. So we'll read something to pass it on. I love people. I love with that. I didn't actually get around to it, but I wanted to sort of set up in high schools. But also there are things, there are certain organizations that I can't mention, but they have magazine subscriptions and things like that. There are certain, there are various blogs out. Have a bit of a research. Edu, or what was Edu in the old logo. There are people, so many people sharing blogs, resources, all sorts of things. That I know sometimes X and all of that can be a bit of a pit, and people arguing about whiteboard glue sticks. There are good bugs there that if you reach out to them, help you, because that's kind of a large part of what we rely on here at Teachers Audio, and that's how we kind of get guests and how we end up with a lot on shows and panels and things like that. So there are there are means of accessing these resources. So please do also reach out to, you can see X handles under both mine and handles, and we are we are veterans in our we have wisdom. I still haven't got
We're still
right.
getting used to it.
So do feel free to reach out to us as well, and we'll assist. It's quite nice actually, Hannah, that you're secondary and I'm primary, so we've got kind of the sort of best of both worlds there. Yeah, and once again, thank you for listening to us and sharing your part of your evening with us. Hannah, it's been an absolute dream to team up with you again.
We'll have to say to people, we're thinking of doing this on every Tuesday. So if you've liked it, let us know, and also let us know what name you think our Tuesdays with Lucy and Hannah should be named. We need a snatchy name, so let us know what those are. And same as if you enjoyed this and you want to be a host, then do also kind of send us a message to one of the things below, because actually this is really great CPD. You get to talk about all the positives of teaching as well as everything else, and like I've thoroughly loved it. I'm a couple of years in now, and it's just such a lovely community. You get to meet amazing people. You get to learn about so much amazing different things by talking to so many different people. So if you want to do this, then do get in contact. We've got a few hosting spots available, and go and have a look through on our website as well. We've got collections, so if you're into wellbeing, go have a look at the wellbeing collections. I've got a few on there of mine, or if you've enjoyed tonight, if you can go back through the archives, I've got a few that I did with life coach Carl Williams, who talks about kind of how to build healthy habits. So there's so much for you in the Teacher Talk Radio archives as well. So don't forget to go and have a look at those if this has tickled your fancy tonight.
Yeah, so thank you once again, everybody. And also any topic anything that you think would be good for us to discuss, please do let us know as well. We're open to ideas. Yeah, fantastic. I think we should probably leave everybody.
Yeah.
Then.
Have a lovely evening. I hope the start of term goes well for everybody.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.